Very good. Well, good morning, everyone. We'll shift gears here and move into our weather discussion. And I want to start by looking back here at Tuesday. We had a major severe weather outbreak across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region, and especially in lower Michigan. This is a graphic here which illustrates, at least these are some reports to the National Weather Service of damage. The blue markers here are all indicate places or locations where wind damage was reported, and that says it all. There was some hail reported with the storms on Tuesday afternoon and early evening, but mostly we were talking about 60 to 70 mile an hour winds, actually some higher than that, but it was over a relatively large area. And I guess that's one of the things to take home here. Look at the spatial coverage on this. Many times severe weather is somewhat localized, but this was definitely not the case. And much of this, really the southern two-thirds of lower Michigan experience severe weather, at least in the area. The inset photo down here, that's from Lansing, very, very common scene around here, as well as many other parts of lower Michigan with the strong winds. A lot of trees went down and took out, of course, power lines. At one point, the number I have seen around maybe 380,000 customers without service at one time. That's a major outage for the state, and unfortunately, some people still do have power out, but it was again over a large area. One other and that severe weather outbreak, which started late in the afternoon and then went in the evening, it followed probably what will be the warmest day, certainly for the southern half of the state of the year. Certainly the warmest and most humid here in the East Lansing area. We were air temperature of 92 with a dew point of 78. Now, those of you who look at dew point, I know many of you do. Anything that gets above 70 degrees Fahrenheit in a dew point here is pretty unusual and pretty uncomfortable. That was put bolds on that and an underline a couple times. That gives you a heat index value of about 107, and that's it for Michigan. That's getting up to where we rarely see conditions that warm and uncomfortable, but very unusually high humidities that was part of the fuel for those thunderstorms that then moved through later on that afternoon and evening. I did want to share one more. This is a trace of temperatures from our EnviroWeather station on campus, or one of them on campus at the Hort facility, and this happened. There's a story behind this. We have in our EnviroWeather system, we have an automated check. And it's basically when data come in from all of these different sites, more than 80 around the state, they're scanned and they're looked at to see if there's any obvious problems with the data. Well, one of the obvious problems with the data looks for big changes in temperature one direction or the other. And on Tuesday afternoon and evening, we had a whole bunch of flags go up because they were really, really rapid. It turned out decreases in temperature. And again, the automated scan thought that there might be a problem with sensors. Well, it wasn't the sensor, it was real. And this is an example here from campus. This was some of the outflow from those severe thunderstorms. And one of the things, if you were there, one of these went by you probably experienced this. And there was a rapid change in temperature, cooling from oppressive conditions, again 90 and then 75 dew points, just really, really oppressive conditions, and then a really, really rapid drop off in temperature. And that's some of the air from aloft, which is much cooler, and it sinks, it's denser, it falls down to the surface, and then that cold air spread out on the leading edges of these thunderstorms, and it changes things really, really rapidly. Well, look at this one here, especially the red line in the middle here. That's air temperature at East Lansing, and we had a temperature change there of 21 degrees Fahrenheit in just 30 minutes. And if you've ever wondered what's the fastest air temperature can change here, it's certainly in terms of cooling, and it would be the same for warming too. We rarely, rarely see changes that fast. But here we had, again, more than 20 degrees Fahrenheit in just a half an hour. And you can see that. And that's why all of these automated checks went red, red flag, because they didn't trust it. But that's about as much of a change as we ever see here in our climate in Michigan. So that's about 1 degree on average for the half-hour period. That was between 4:20 p.m. and 5:10 p.m. here in East Lansing. But again, many of you experience some of the same thing. Really, really rapid cooling off in temperature, which is really unusual. That's about 1 degree Fahrenheit on average every minute and a half. So if you've ever wondered what's the fastest we can see our atmosphere change, you could point to this and say that's it. That's if it's not it, it's pretty close to it. So anyway, that was part of our unusual weather, and of course with that was a great deal of wind and some of the property damage and trees down and so forth. Well, let's look at the last week here real quickly and then move into our forecast. It was for most of the state for the past week a little bit warmer than normal here. On the left-hand side, our mean temperature departures ranging from a degree or two to as much as 3 or 4 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. In northern parts of the state, precipitation, much of this fell with the severe weather outbreak on Tuesday, at least in the lower peninsula here. But you can see some areas of the state, notably the interior northern lower and portions of southwest, the rainfall totals were much less, and generally less than 1/4 of an inch. We did get more rainfall in western upper Michigan. That's one of the drier parts of the state, some cases more than an inch. And that, again, that's not unfavorable. They have been dry for some time. On the far right-hand side here are our 30-day departures or longer-term departures expressed in percent of normal. And you can see that there are still drier than normal areas in some spots, most notably in the far north. But also note, it's also appeared really in the extreme south, along the Indiana and Ohio lines. And that some of that area has been identified recently by the drought monitor in D0 or somewhat abnormally dry. It isn't a real problem yet, but it's certainly different from a lot of lower Michigan, the central and portions of eastern lower Michigan, where we've had just been inundated with much, much above normal rainfall and a much wetter than normal growing season. Degree day totals here for the season, with the warmer temperatures, not surprisingly, are still above normal in most of lower Michigan, and they're a little bit behind or less than normal in the far north. These are 8650 corn units, and our current totals here as of this past week range from about 1,500 in the far north to almost now 2,400 in the far south. And relative to normal, which is on the right-hand side here, you can see we still have surpluses. That's been the case for virtually all of the growing season, that same spatial pattern, and probably will continue given the outlook. Speaking of which, where are we headed? Well, we are going to, especially after heat and humidity and uncomfortable conditions here earlier in the week, we have one more day, at least in the southern part of the state, where we will see those conditions develop tomorrow with the next weather system. But that's really the major weather news looking at the week ahead. It's the next 24 to 36 hours. But tomorrow will be the warmest day of the week. This is looking beyond that into next week. And in the middle here, our jet stream pattern, what you can see is another big trough forms over eastern North America, northwesterly flow. You can put two and two together there. What does that mean? Well, it means we're looking for, at least in the next week, we're looking for a big cooling off. And this temperature departures from normal here. This is for the 31st through the 5th, so the first several days of September, but cooler than normal conditions expected. And the other one, drier than normal conditions are also anticipated here. That's for the upcoming week or so, but you will see in the medium range that there's a fairly strong suggestion that pattern's not there for a long time and that we will transition once again some point in the second week. And I'll get to that in a moment. Well, this morning here, where are we at? High pressure over Ontario and Quebec off to our north and east. That's the primary weather factor here. We will see a little bit more in the way of sunshine, but note also a pretty strong change in temperature from the far northern parts of the state. We were in the upper 40s, by the way, here, or actually are right now in the far northern part of the state, closer to the center of that high, while we're still near 70 in the far south. There's a frontal boundary down here across the Ohio Valley. And that has been the weather system that's been sort of stuck here for the last couple of days. It's going to be coming back and play another role. And the next weather system really, though, to impact us over the next day or two is out here to our north and west. And that's a frontal system cold or occluded front here with low pressure across southern Canada, and that's going to make its way through the state really beginning late tonight, early tomorrow morning, and then during the day tomorrow into tomorrow night. And that's the most active period of weather that we'll be looking at probably for the upcoming week. So by tomorrow morning, you can see that frontal boundary approach. We will see development of showers and thunderstorms beginning in western upper Michigan here by late this evening, early tomorrow morning, and then spread to the south and east during the day tomorrow and into tomorrow evening before the front exits the state here by probably overnight, late evening tomorrow and into early Saturday. That's the big weather system for of note here for most of the state here, and certainly the most significant chances for precip. Almost all the precipitation we're looking at during the next week is with this system. Most areas will be talking about a quarter to half an inch because the system, there will be showers and thunderstorms, but they'll be moving along fairly quickly. So we're not anticipating heavy rain. There is a chance, especially I think in southeastern lower Michigan, later tomorrow evening, watch, there might be some strong thunderstorms that do form. The big question here, and if you're going to the football game for, the high school games tonight, which season opens tonight, look great. Good weather in most areas. That's going to be cooperative, nice temperatures. But tomorrow night for MSU's opening game here with Florida Atlantic, it's a little dicey. That front's going to be there, and we're going to see convection literally develop very close to the area, if not right over the top of us. Late in the afternoon, the early evening, it's going to be probably 50-50, but definitely, I would definitely bring, I'm going, again, definitely bring weather gear. And we might luck out and it might go around us, but there's going to be certainly thunderstorms going up over the top. Probably temperatures in the upper 70s by game time around 7, but there's a fairly good chance, at least 50-50, that we will see some showers or thunders. And of course, if there's lightning and thunder, there are other problems for the game, but that's something to be aware of tomorrow night. But all of that clears off the state to the south and east by overnight Friday. There will be some lingering showers, the threat of those on Saturday. And here's Saturday morning in mostly the far northeastern parts of the state. Otherwise, we will see clearing. And the holiday weekend coming up here, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, in most areas, especially central and south, looks wonderful. Fantastic conditions expected, but noticeably cooler. We will see high temperatures tomorrow ranging from the mid 70s north to, we might push 90 in the far southern part of the state tomorrow. But those will fall off and rapidly or drop off significantly during the weekend. So by Sunday, Monday, Tuesday type time frame, we're looking at highs back into the low and mid 70s in most areas and lows into the 40s and low 50s. So we'll actually be several degrees cooler than normal here by the end of the weekend and for at least the first half of next week. And after tomorrow night, no precipitation and other than the northeast scattered activity on Saturday, but most people will remain dry. Not looking at any more precipitation after tomorrow. Now, for the total for the whole week here, a drier than normal week is anticipated. You can see there's an area here, a relative low area, less than most places, less than a quarter of an inch, or certainly less than half an inch over most of the state, especially across central and northern lower Michigan. So again, looking at cooling off with relatively dry conditions, not much in the way of precipitation expected. Water demand with the temperatures that we're looking at and with relatively sunny skies, there's a little bit of a balance and give and take here, but daily values averaging about 0.13 to 1600ths of an inch per day for the upcoming week, and that's about normal. That's what the climatology says we should be seeing for late August and the beginning of September. Now, finally, the medium range outlook here. I mentioned that, yes, we're looking at cool conditions next week. Where do we go from there? Well, here's the upper air pattern, and you can see there's still a trough there, but if you're looking at the details, it has shifted somewhat to the east. And this ridging feature that's out over the western U.S. and it's going to lead to very, very warm and dry conditions in the western U.S. over the upcoming week. That's going to get closer. And the bottom line is here, we will very likely be looking at a warming trend. Once again, probably about a week to a week and a half out. And so our 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks from the Climate Prediction Center are reflecting that and suggest once again a transition back to a warmer than normal pattern. But also note the other best message here, drier than normal. And that's showing up in again, both are really our short-term forecasts and also the longer or the medium range as well. So cooler and drier, transitioning to warmer and drier here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And with that, I'll summarize. And well, again, the weather system of note here is coming up in the next day or so. Be ready again if you're going to be out for football this weekend, especially tomorrow night. One last thing I wanted to show too. Several of you asked about a website where you can go to get information about the Northern Lights and Aurora Borealis. And I'm going to put this into the chat here as soon as we wrap up here. But the one that is really, it's excellent and you can use, it's with NOAA, but it's a Space Weather Prediction Center. They have more information than you can ever dream of regarding the Northern Lights. But this, if you want to find out when's the next time we might see the Northern Lights, these are some really good options to do that. And with that, I'm going to introduce next week's speaker. And well, we know in many parts of the state we've had anything but drought this year, but we know drought is an issue with us. But we've got Dr. Asangani from MSU's Biosystem and Ag Engineering Department, who's an expert on drainage, and he's going to be with us to talk about drought-proofing agriculture. Should be an interesting talk. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Phil, I believe, to talk about RUP.